The bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable hummed with quiet efficiency as Admiral Chen Wei-Lin studied the star charts displayed before her. The 3rd Expeditionary Force had been on patrol for 6 weeks, mapping the outer boundaries of human-explored space. It was routine work, the kind that made young officers restless and veterans grateful for the peace. Lieutenant Marcus Webb sat at the communications station, cycling through standard frequency sweeps. The job was monotonous, listening to the background noise of space, the occasional automated beacon from mining operations, and the distant chatter of commercial vessels. He was 3 hours into his shift when something unusual caught his attention. "Admiral, I'm picking up something strange," Webb said, his fingers dancing across his console. "It's a distress signal, but not in any format I recognize." Chen rose from her command chair and walked over to Webb's station. She was a woman in her mid-50s with gray streaking through her black hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. The Proxima Wars had aged her, but they had also honed her into one of humanity's finest military commanders. "Let me hear it," she said. The bridge speakers crackled to life. The signal was broken and desperate, a series of sounds that clearly indicated panic even though the language was completely alien. Behind the voice they could hear explosions and the distinctive whine of energy weapons. "That's a distress call," Chen said with certainty. "Commander Hayes, get our linguistics AI working on that language. I want a translation as fast as possible." Commander Sarah Hayes, the ship's executive officer, immediately set to work. The Indomitable's computers were among the most advanced in the human fleet, capable of processing vast amounts of data in seconds. Within minutes, the AI had begun constructing a basic translation matrix. The translated message came through in fragments, but the meaning was clear enough. A civilian convoy was under attack. The speakers identified themselves as Valorians. They were outgunned and their shields were failing. They were calling for help from anyone who could hear them. "Location?" Chen asked. "Kepler 442 system, Admiral," Webb replied. "About 3 hours away at maximum speed. Any other ships in the area?" "Negative. We're the closest vessel by at least 2 days." Chen stood silent for a moment, weighing her options. Protocol was clear on this matter. The United Earth Fleet was not supposed to interfere in conflicts involving alien species, unless human interests were directly threatened. Their mission was exploration and defense of human territory, not playing hero for unknown aliens. Commander Hayes moved to stand beside her. "Admiral, regulations state that we should report this to Fleet Command and await orders." "By the time we get orders, those civilians will be dead," Chen replied quietly. She turned to face her bridge crew. Every eye was on her, waiting for the decision. "We didn't come out here just to draw maps. We came to represent humanity among the stars. What kind of message does it send if we ignore a cry for help?" "Some might say it sends the message that we mind our own business," Hayes said, playing devil's advocate. "We don't know these Valorians. We don't know who's attacking them or why. This could be a legitimate law enforcement action for all we know." Chen shook her head. "Did that sound like law enforcement to you, Commander?" That was terror in those voices. "Besides, the attackers aren't identifying themselves. Pirates, most likely." She made her decision. "Helm, set course for Kepler 442, maximum speed. All hands to battle stations." The alarm klaxons began to sound throughout the ship. The Indomitable had been cruising at reduced readiness, but now every system came online. Crew members rushed to their posts. Gun crews loaded weapons. Fighter pilots ran to their craft. Engineering pushed the reactors to combat power. "Transmit to the rest of the fleet," Chen ordered. "We're responding to a distress call. Expect hostile contact." The 3rd Expeditionary Force consisted of 7 ships: the dreadnought Indomitable, 3 destroyers named Thunder, Relentless, and Striker, 2 frigates called Phantom and Spectre, and the stealth carrier Nightfall. They were all veteran ships with veteran crews, hardened by years of conflict. As they approached the Kepler 442 system, the sensor data began to paint a clearer picture. Lieutenant Commander James Park, the tactical officer, brought up a holographic display showing the battlefield. 40 contacts, Admiral. They're circling 3 larger vessels. The large vessels match the configuration described in the distress call. Those must be the Valorian transports. And the 40 contacts? Unknown configuration, but their behavior patterns match raiders. They're taking turns hammering the transport's shields, playing with them. Chen's jaw tightened. She had seen this before back during the Proxima Wars. Pirates and raiders loved to terrorize their victims before finishing them off. It was about more than just stealing cargo. It was about spreading fear. "Get me a profile on those raiders," she ordered. The computer worked quickly, comparing the ship designs against known species in humanity's database. The match came back within seconds. "Zathari swarm, Admiral," Park reported. "Known pirates and slavers. They've been operating in this region for decades. No formal government, just a loose confederation of warlords. They're considered a major threat to civilian shipping. Have they ever encountered humans before?" "Negative. No recorded contact." Chen allowed herself a thin smile. "Then they're in for a surprise. Communications. I want you to prepare a message in the common trade language. We're going to give them one chance to back off." "Admiral, with respect," Commander Hayes said. "They outnumber us more than 5-1. Numbers aren't everything, Commander. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way over thousands of years of warfare. These pirates are used to picking on unarmed transports. They've probably never faced a real military force. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The Valorian transports were in bad shape. Their shields flickered weakly, and scorch marks covered their hulls. The Zathari raiders swarmed around them like insects, their weapons blazing. "Open a channel on all frequencies," Chen commanded. "This is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Fleet to all Zathari vessels. You are attacking civilian ships. Stand down immediately and withdraw, or we will use force." The response came quickly. The voice was harsh and guttural, translated by the communications system. "Foolish mammals. This is not your concern. These ships and their cargo belong to us. You have 7 ships. We have 40. Leave now or join them in death." Laughter echoed across the channel before it cut off. Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her with grim determination. They had all heard the pirate's words. They all knew what came next. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she said into the fleet-wide channel. "We've come a long way as a species. We've fought wars among ourselves and learned hard lessons about courage, sacrifice, and doing what's right. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. All weapons free. Target the raiders. Show them why they should have run." The Indomitable's massive railguns began to spin up, building charge. Throughout the fleet, weapon systems came online. Fighter bays opened. The most lethal fleet in the galaxy was about to introduce itself to an unsuspecting enemy. The first shot came from the Indomitable. The Dreadnought's main railgun fired a tungsten carbide slug the size of a small car, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds, moving so fast that the Zathari sensor systems barely registered it before impact. The pirate ship exploded. One moment it existed, the next it was a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated debris. There was no time for shields to activate, no chance for evasive maneuvers. The sheer kinetic energy of the impact vaporized the entire vessel. For a brief moment, the Zathari fleet seemed to freeze in confusion. They had never seen weapons like this before. Most galactic civilizations relied on energy weapons or slow-moving missiles. The human doctrine of kinetic bombardment was something entirely new to them. That moment of hesitation cost them dearly. The 3 human destroyers opened fire simultaneously. Their plasma lances reached out across space. Superheated streams of contained matter that burned through shields and armor like paper. 3 more pirate ships died before their commanders could react. "Evasive maneuvers," Lieutenant Commander Park announced calmly, watching the tactical display. "The raiders are returning fire." The Zathari weapons were energy beams, colorful but relatively weak compared to their human equivalents. The Indomitable's shields absorbed the attacks easily, the defensive systems barely registering the impacts. Human shield technology had been developed during the brutal Proxima Wars, where survival meant having better defenses than your enemy had offense. "Target the ships closest to the Valorian transports," Admiral Chen ordered. "I want those civilians protected." The battle unfolded with devastating efficiency. The human ships moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. Their maneuvering thrusters fired in precise bursts, their AI-assisted navigation systems calculating trajectories thousands of times per second. The Zathari tried to surround them, to use their numerical advantage, but the human formation never broke. The frigates Phantom and Spectre lived up to their names. They were smaller and faster than the other ships, designed for hit-and-run tactics. They darted through the enemy formation like predatory fish, their weapon systems targeting engines and weapons batteries with surgical precision. Crippled pirate ships spun helplessly, unable to maneuver or fight back. "Launch fighters," Chen commanded. The carrier Nightfall had been hanging back, seemingly inactive. Now its launch bays opened, and squadrons of human fighters poured out. Each fighter was a masterpiece of engineering, small enough to be difficult targets but heavily armed and armored. More importantly, they were piloted by humans who had trained their entire adult lives for combat. The fighters swept through the Zathari formation like a swarm of angry hornets. Their missiles streaked across space, each one guided by an AI that could adjust its course 1,000 times before impact. The pirates' point defense systems were overwhelmed. Ship after ship fell to the fighter assault. Inside the cockpit of Fighter Alpha 1, Commander Lisa Rodriguez pulled her stick hard, executing a turn that would have killed most organic species. Human pilots wore specialized suits that helped manage the extreme forces, and years of training had conditioned their bodies to handle maneuvers that defied common sense. "Fox 3, Fox 3, she called out, announcing missile launch. Her targeting computer had locked onto a pirate cruiser that was trying to flee. The missile launched and immediately began weaving through space, avoiding the desperate defensive fire from its target. Impact. Another enemy ship died. Alpha leader to all fighters. Keep them boxed in. Don't let any escape to warn their friends." Back on the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with professional detachment. This was what her fleet had been built for. Decades of human warfare had taught brutal lessons about combat effectiveness. Every system on her ships had been refined through trial and error, paid for with the blood of previous generations. "Admiral, the Zathari are attempting to flee," Commander Hayes reported. Chen shook her head. "Negative. Let none escape. We need to send a clear message about what happens when you attack civilians in human-protected space." It was a cold decision, but a necessary one. If word got out that humans were easy marks, that their warnings could be ignored, then this would happen again and again. Better to be feared than to watch more innocents die. The destroyers Thunder, Relentless, and Striker pursued the fleeing pirates. Their engines were more powerful and their hulls more aerodynamic than the Zathari designs. Within minutes they had caught up to the stragglers. The brief exchange of fire was completely one-sided. Enemy forces reduced to 15 ships, Park reported. 10 are attempting to surrender. 5 are still fighting. "Accept the surrender of the 10, Chen said. "Disable their weapons and engines. As for the other 5, eliminate them." The battle lasted 18 minutes from first shot to final surrender. Of the 40 Zathari raiders, 33 were destroyed. 7 survived, and those only because they had surrendered immediately and completely. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. Only the Indomitable's shields had even been scratched. As the human ships secured the battlefield, the Valorian transports remained where they had been throughout the fight, their crews watching in stunned silence. They had called for help expecting nothing. If someone had come, they had expected a long negotiation, perhaps a token effort to drive off the pirates. What they had witnessed instead was total annihilation delivered with surgical precision. "Open a channel to the Valorian ships," Admiral Chen ordered. "All frequencies, standard first contact protocols." Lieutenant Webb worked his console, then nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Chen took a breath, knowing that her next words would be humanity's first real introduction to another species. "This is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Fleet. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Your ships are safe. We are here to help." The response came after a long pause. The voice was musical, almost like multiple people singing in harmony. The translation software struggled for a moment before settling on an approximation. "We are the Valorian Concordat. We did not expect. We have never seen. Who are you? What are you?" "We are humans from the planet Earth. We received your distress signal and responded. Do your ships require assistance?" Another pause. "Yes, our shields are failing. Hull breaches on Deck 7 of the Harmonious Dawn. Casualties. We cannot believe. You came. No one has ever come before." Those last words hung in the air on the bridge. Commander Hayes met Chen's eyes, and the Admiral saw her own thoughts reflected there. What kind of galaxy was this where a distress call went unanswered? Where had humanity emerged into? "We will send repair teams and medical personnel," Chen said. "Please transmit your atmospheric requirements and medical data so we can properly assist your wounded." The information came through quickly. The Valorians were oxygen breathers, though they preferred slightly higher humidity than humans. Their biology was compatible enough that human medical knowledge could be adapted with some adjustments. Commander Hayes organized rescue teams, Chen ordered. I want our best engineers and medics over there. Full first contact protocols. Everyone on their best behavior. We're representing all of humanity here. Hayes nodded and began issuing orders. Within minutes, shuttles were being prepared, supplies loaded, and volunteers organized. The human crews were eager to help, their blood still running hot from the battle. Admiral Chen stood and straightened her uniform. I'll be leading the team to the Valorian flagship. Commander Hayes, you have the bridge. Admiral, is that wise? We don't know anything about these aliens. Chen smiled slightly. That's exactly why I need to go. First contact is too important to delegate. Besides, they just watched us destroy 40 ships in less than 20 minutes. I think they'll be polite. As Chen headed to the shuttle bay, she thought about what lay ahead. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences, both good and bad. But as she had told her crew, they had not come to space just to hide. They had come to make a difference. The shuttle from the Indomitable docked with the Valorian flagship Harmonious Dawn, with barely a whisper of escaping air. Admiral Chen stood in the airlock with 6 other humans. 2 Marines in full-powered armor, 2 engineers, a medic, and Lieutenant Webb to handle communications. All of them wore their dress uniforms, immaculately maintained despite the months in space. First impressions mattered. The inner airlock door opened and Chen got her first look at an alien species. The Valorians were beautiful in an unsettling way. They stood on 4 legs, their bodies covered in what looked like mother-of-pearl scales that shifted colors in the light. Their upper torsos were almost humanoid, with forearms ending in delicate, multi-jointed fingers. Their faces were elongated with large compound eyes and small mandibles that clicked softly when they spoke. A group of 5 Valorians waited in the docking bay. The one in front wore elaborate robes decorated with flowing patterns. When she spoke, her voice came out as a harmonious blend of tones like a small choir singing together. I am Choir Master Velnara, captain of this vessel. We welcome you aboard the Harmonious Dawn, saviors from Earth. Lieutenant Webb's translation device worked overtime, converting the musical language into standard English. Chen stepped forward and offered a slight bow, careful not to make any gesture that might be offensive. I am Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Fleet. We are honored to meet you, Choir Master. Are your people safe? Velnara's mandibles clicked in what the translation software suggested was distress. We have casualties. 17 dead, 32 wounded. Our engineering sections were hit hard. Without your intervention, we would all be dead or enslaved within the hour. Chen nodded to her medic. Dr. Patel here is trained in emergency medicine. If you can show her you're wounded and provide basic information about Valorian physiology, she will do everything she can to help. Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward, her medical scanner already in hand. Another Valorian, wearing what looked like medical markings, approached nervously. The 2 medical professionals moved off together, communicating through gestures and the translation device. Our engineers can help with the hull breaches, Chen offered. We brought repair equipment. You are too generous, Velnara said. We cannot repay such kindness, and we don't expect payment. This is what civilized species do. They help each other. Velnara's body language suggested confusion. Her scales shifted to a deep blue color. You must forgive my surprise, Admiral. In our experience, no species helps without expecting something in return. The strong dominate the weak. That is simply how the galaxy works. Chen felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. How long have your people been traveling the stars, Choir Master? Nearly 3,000 of your years. We have visited hundreds of worlds, traded with dozens of species, and in all that time we have learned that the Valorian Concordat is considered weak. We have no great weapons, no mighty fleet. We survive by being useful, by trading goods that others want, and by accepting that we will sometimes be raided and there is nothing we can do about it. The Zathari have attacked you before? Many times. They take our cargo, sometimes our people. We report it to the Galactic authorities, but nothing changes. The Trellan hegemony, the most powerful military force in known space, tells us this is natural. The weak must accept their place. Chen's jaw tightened. She had fought in 3 wars, seen more death than any person should, but she had always believed it was for something. To protect the innocent, to defend those who could not defend themselves. The idea that the galaxy simply accepted piracy and slavery as normal made her blood boil. That may be how the galaxy works, Choirmaster. But it is not how humanity works. We will escort you to your homeworld. No one will attack you while we are present. Velnara's scales shifted to bright yellow. The translation software suggested this indicated joy or relief. You would do this? But you have only just met us. You know nothing of our people. We know you called for help and that you were being attacked by pirates. That's enough. Over the next several hours, human crews worked alongside Valorian ones to repair the damaged transports. The humans were impressed by the Valorian ship designs, which were elegant and efficient even if they lacked adequate weapons. The Valorians, in turn, were amazed by human technology. The powered armor that the Marines wore, the sophisticated repair tools, even the coffee that the humans shared, all of it was fascinating to them. During the repair work, Lieutenant Webb spent time with Velnara, learning about the Valorian Concordat and the larger galactic community. What he learned disturbed him deeply, and he reported it all to Admiral Chen. Admiral, according to Velnara, there are thousands of species in this part of the galaxy. Most of them are organized into about a dozen major powers. The biggest ones are the Trellan hegemony, which is primarily military, the Morphidian Empire, which is focused on commerce, and the Crystalline Collective, which is some kind of hive mind. And where do humans fit into this? Chen asked. We don't, at least not yet. The Valorians had never heard of us. Earth is on the very edge of explored space. We're newcomers, and the major powers haven't paid much attention to us yet. That's about to change, Chen said grimly. What about the Zathari? They're pirates, just like we thought. No central government, just warlords controlling fleets. They've been raiding in this region for decades, maybe centuries. The major powers mostly ignore them because they only attack weak targets. Chen stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the damaged Valorian ships. Tell me something, Lieutenant. In all the history you've studied, has there ever been a period when humanity just accepted that the strong could do whatever they wanted to the weak? Webb thought for a moment. Not really, Admiral. Even in our darkest times, there were always people fighting against tyranny and oppression. It's kind of what we do, exactly. And I don't see why that should change just because we're in space now. A few hours later, Dr. Patel returned to give her report. All the wounded Valorians are stable, Admiral. Their biology is actually not that different from arthropods on Earth. I was able to adapt our trauma protocols with help from their medical staff. We saved 3 who would have died otherwise. Good work, Doctor. Admiral, there's something else. I spoke with their medical staff about the Zathari. Apparently the pirates don't just steal cargo. They take people too, slaves. The Valorian doctor told me they've lost hundreds of their people over the years to raids. Chen closed her eyes briefly. Slavery. Of course. Where there were pirates, there was always slavery. Did she say where they take them? Various places. Apparently there's an entire black market for slaves in this part of space. The Zathari have a main base somewhere in unclaimed territory where they auction people off. Get me everything we have on Zathari operations, Chen ordered. Locations, ship movements, anything. And get me a secure channel to Fleet Command. They need to know what we've found out here. By the time repairs were complete, Admiral Chen had made several decisions. The fleet would escort the Valorians home, which would take about a week. During that time, she would compile a full report for Fleet Command about the galactic situation. She would recommend an immediate increase in patrol activity in this region, and a formal policy on responding to distress calls from alien species. She also knew that 7 human ships had just changed the balance of power. In this part of space, the Zathari had lost 33 vessels. That was not something that would be forgotten or forgiven. Eventually, there would be retaliation. But Chen had sent one of the captured pirate ships back towards Zathari space, with a message loaded into its computer. The message was simple. Humanity protects the innocent. Attack civilian ships at your own peril. As the human fleet prepared to depart with the Valorian convoy, Velnara requested one final meeting with Admiral Chen. They met in the Harmonious Dawn's observation lounge, a beautiful circular room with windows looking out into space. Admiral Chen, I want to thank you again for saving my people, Velnara said, but I must also warn you. The Zathari do not forgive insults. You have hurt them badly. They will seek revenge. Let them come, Chen replied. We'll be ready. You do not understand. They will not just send a raiding party. They will gather their warlords and bring everything they have. Hundreds of ships. Chen smiled, though there was no humor in it. Choirmaster, humanity spent most of its history fighting itself. We had 2 world wars that killed millions. We nearly destroyed our own planet several times. We learned how to fight through thousands of years of brutal experience. If the Zathari want a war, they'll get one. And they'll learn why you don't threaten civilians when humans are watching. Velnara's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple that the translation software could not interpret. I believe you, Admiral, and I think the galaxy is about to learn something new. There is a species that does not accept the old rules, a species that believes the strong should protect the weak rather than prey upon them. That's exactly right, Chen said. Welcome to humanity. The news traveled faster than any ship could fly. Within days, every major power in the galaxy had heard about the human intervention. Communication networks buzzed with debate, analysis, and speculation. A new species had appeared seemingly from nowhere and destroyed a significant Zathari force without taking a single loss. The implications were staggering. On the Trellan hegemony capital world of Trell Prime, the military council gathered in emergency session. The Trellans were a species that had dominated this region of space for 2,000 years. They were large, heavily armored beings who believed that military might made right. Their empire was built on the principle that the strong ruled and the weak obeyed. Grand Marshal Korvex slammed his armored fist on the conference table. This cannot be allowed. These humans interfered in a matter that was not their concern. They violated the natural order. What natural order? Asked Diplomat General Threll, one of the few Trellans who preferred talking to fighting. The one where pirates attack civilians and we do nothing because it's too much trouble to police the outer regions? The Valorians are weak. The Zathari are strong. That is all that matters. The humans destroyed 40 Zathari ships in 18 minutes. That makes them stronger than the Zathari. So by your logic, should we not defer to them? Korvex had no answer for that. The council descended into argument. Eventually, they agreed to send a diplomatic message to humanity, warning them to stay out of affairs that did not concern them. They also quietly upgraded the human threat assessment from negligible to moderate and began gathering intelligence on this new species. On the Morphidian homeworld, the reaction was different. The Morphidian Empire was built on trade and commerce. They viewed the galaxy through the lens of profit and loss. To them, the human intervention represented an opportunity. Emperor Zalthor reviewed the combat footage that had been pieced together from various sources. Impressive, he said, his tentacles writhing in what his species considered a smile. Very impressive. Their weapons technology is at least a generation ahead of anything we have. Their ships move with precision that suggests very advanced artificial intelligence. Should we consider them a threat, Your Imperial Majesty? Asked one of his advisors. A threat? No, an opportunity. Send a trade delegation to human space immediately. Offer them economic partnership. If they are as powerful as this footage suggests, we want them as friends, not enemies. Besides, if they are serious about protecting civilian shipping, that is good for business. Pirates are bad for trade. The Crystalline Collective, a Gestalt consciousness spread across thousands of crystalline bodies, analyzed the situation with cold logic. The humans were a variable that had not been factored into the collective's long-term strategic planning. Variables were dangerous. Variables needed to be understood and categorized. The collective sent scout ships toward human space to observe and gather data. They also began running simulations, trying to predict how the humans would alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The results were concerning. Every simulation that assumed the humans would continue their interventionist behavior resulted in significant shifts in the galactic order. Meanwhile, in Zathari space, Warlord Krish the Render was gathering his forces. His personal compound was carved into an asteroid, a fortress filled with weapons and soldiers. He sat on his command throne watching the footage of his ships being destroyed by the humans, and his rage grew with each viewing. They dare, he growled. They dare to attack my warriors, to humiliate me in front of the entire galaxy. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Takresh, stood nearby. My lord, perhaps we should be cautious. The humans destroyed our ships with ease. Their technology is superior. Krish spun and struck Takresh across the face with enough force to send him sprawling. Are you a coward? We have numbers. We have allies. We have warriors who have been raiding these space lanes for generations. What do the humans have? 7 ships, 7. My lord, those 7 ships destroyed 40 of ours. Because our warriors were surprised. Because they were not prepared. This time will be different. Krish stood and addressed the gathered warlords who had answered his call. The humans have made a mistake. They have shown us their strength, but they have also revealed their weakness. They care about civilians. They protect the weak. This is foolishness that we can exploit. Krish's plan was simple in its brutality. He would gather every ship he could, not just from his own fleet, but from other Zathari warlords and from mercenary groups throughout the region. He would find where the humans lived, and he would attack their colonies. He would kill their civilians until they learned that interfering with the Zathari had consequences. "Send word to our allies," Krish commanded. "Tell the mercenary companies that there is profit to be made. Tell the other warlords that the humans have made themselves our enemies. We will gather the largest fleet ever assembled, and we will crush them. And then, the entire galaxy will know that these Zathari are not to be trifled with." On Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the United Earth Council, giving her report. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every nation that had contributed to the space program. They listened in silence as she described the rescue, the battle, and what she had learned about the galactic community. In summary, Chen concluded, "We have entered a galaxy where slavery is tolerated, where piracy is considered acceptable, and where the strong prey on the weak without consequence. The major powers have built their civilizations on this foundation, and they are not happy that we have challenged it." Council Chairman David Okafor leaned forward. "Admiral Chen, you exceeded your authority. Your mission was exploration, not military intervention in alien conflicts. With respect, sir, my mission was to represent humanity among the stars. When we heard a distress call, we had a choice. We could ignore it and show the galaxy that humans are cowards who hide when others need help. Or we could respond and show them what humanity stands for. And you chose to potentially start an interstellar war. I chose to do the right thing, and I would make the same choice again." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives praised Chen's moral courage and argued that humanity needed to take a stand. Others condemned her for risking human lives and potentially making enemies of powerful alien civilizations. The debate raged for hours until new intelligence reports arrived. The Zathari were gathering a massive fleet. Mercenary groups from across the galaxy were joining them, and their target appeared to be Arcturus Station, one of humanity's primary outposts and shipyards. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This was no longer theoretical. "War was coming. How many ships are they gathering?" asked the council chairman. "Estimated 200 Zathari vessels plus another 50 mercenary warships," replied Admiral Grant Harrison, the head of Fleet Intelligence. "They're also claiming to have support from elements of the Trellan hegemony, though we're not sure if that's true or just propaganda. Can we defend against that?" Admiral Harrison looked at Chen. "Admiral Chen, your honest assessment. Can we hold Arcturus Station against those numbers?" Chen stood and met the eyes of everyone in the room. "Alone? No, 7 ships cannot hold against 250. But we don't have just 7 ships. We have the entire United Earth Navy. And I know our people, our ships, and our capabilities. If you authorize full mobilization, if you let us bring every warship we have to Arcturus Station, then yes, we can win. At what cost?" someone asked. "I don't know," Chen admitted, "but I know the cost of backing down. If we abandon Arcturus Station, we will forever be marked as weak. Every pirate, every slaver, every tyrant in the galaxy will know that humans can be intimidated. And then we will never be safe. Better to fight now, to show them who we are, than to spend the next century living in fear." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would defend Arcturus Station. The full might of the United Earth Navy would be deployed. Every ship that could fly would be sent to face the Zathari. As the council adjourned, Chen was approached by Admiral Harrison. "You know they're going to make you lead this battle." "I know. You just talked us into a war that might cost thousands of lives." "I talked us into standing up for what's right." "There's a difference." Harrison studied her for a long moment. "I hope you're right, Chen, I really do. Because if you're wrong, humanity's first impression on the galaxy will be our extinction." Chen returned to the Indomitable with new orders. The 3rd Expeditionary Force would be the vanguard, the first line of defense. But they would not be alone. Every shipyard in human space was working overtime. Every ship was being recalled from patrol. Reserves were being activated. The message went out across all human military channels: prepare for war. 3 weeks after the rescue of the Valorian convoy, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, and looked at the largest human fleet ever assembled. 317 warships hung in space around Arcturus Station, their running lights creating a field of stars against the darkness. Every ship that could be spared had come. Every crew was ready. The fleet represented the full strength of humanity's military power. There were 28 dreadnoughts, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. There were 63 destroyers, sleek and fast. There were 92 frigates, smaller ships designed for speed and maneuverability. There were 41 carriers, each loaded with fighters. And there were 93 support vessels, including hospital ships, supply carriers, and mobile repair docks. Status report, Chen commanded. Commander Hayes stood at her usual position. All ships report ready for combat, Admiral. The outer defense network is active. Fighters are deployed in patrol patterns. Long-range sensors are set to maximum sensitivity. And our guests? The Valorian convoy has been secured in the inner system. Choirmaster Velnara is asking permission to stay and observe. Chen smiled slightly. After delivering the Valorians safely home, she had been surprised when Velnara requested permission to return with 3 ships carrying volunteer crews. The Valorians wanted to witness the battle, to see if humanity could truly stand against the forces gathering against them. Permission granted. Keep them well back from the fighting, Lieutenant Webb called out from communications. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up multiple faster-than-light signatures. Lots of them. They're dropping into real space at the edge of the system. Here we go, Chen said quietly. All ships, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded. Crews ran to their posts. Weapon systems powered up. Shield generators hummed to full capacity. In the fighter bays, pilots sealed their helmets and prepared to launch. The enemy fleet appeared like a swarm of insects. 200 Zathari raiders, their ships decorated with tribal markings and kill tallies. 50 mercenary vessels from a dozen different species, their hulls bearing the scars of countless battles. And hanging back just far enough to claim they were merely observing, 5 Trellan hegemony warships. The combined enemy force outnumbered humanity's fleet, but not by as much as the Zathari had hoped. Warlord Krish, commanding from his flagship, felt a moment of doubt when he saw the human numbers, but he pushed it down. They had come too far to back down now. All ships, this is Warlord Krish. We will show these humans what happens when they interfere with the Zathari. We will burn their station and kill their warriors. Attack! The pirate fleet surged forward in a disorganized mass. There was no coordination, no strategy. Each warlord commanded his own ships and cared only about his own glory. The mercenaries hung back slightly, unwilling to be the first into the meat grinder. Admiral Chen watched them come. They're not even trying to coordinate their approach. They think they can just overwhelm us with numbers. Should we move to intercept? Commander Hayes asked. Negative. Let them come to us. The closer they get, the more our defense platforms can engage. Prepare firing solution Alpha. The human fleet held position in a defensive formation around Arcturus Station. The station itself was armed, its massive weapons platforms tracking the incoming targets. As the pirates entered range, Chen gave the order. All ships open fire. The space between the 2 fleets lit up with violence. Human railguns fired salvo after salvo, each tungsten projectile carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a planet. Plasma lances reached out, superheated streams of matter that burned through anything they touched. Missile pods launched thousands of self-guided munitions, each one carrying enough explosive power to vaporize a building. The Zathari had expected a fight. What they got was a massacre. Human targeting systems, refined through centuries of warfare, never missed. Every shot was calculated, optimized, and delivered with perfect precision. The pirates' shields, designed to handle energy weapons, were worthless against kinetic bombardment. Their armor, sufficient for raids on civilian ships, crumpled like paper. The first wave of Zathari ships died before they could get within effective weapons range. 25 vessels destroyed in the opening salvo. The survivors kept coming, driven by pride and rage and the knowledge that retreat would mean dishonor. Launch all fighters, Chen commanded. The carriers released their birds. Thousands of human fighters poured into space, their pilots eager for the fight. They hit the enemy formation like a tidal wave, their weapons tearing through shields and armor with ruthless efficiency. Commander Rodriguez led Fighter Squadron Alpha 1 directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. Her targeting computer screamed warnings about the number of hostile vessels, but she ignored it. This was what she had trained for her entire life. Alpha Squadron, break and attack. Pick your targets and fire at will. Her squadron split up, each pilot selecting an enemy ship and engaging with deadly precision. Rodriguez locked onto a Zathari cruiser and fired a full spread of missiles. The enemy point defense systems tried to stop them, but human missiles were too fast, too smart. Impacts rippled across the cruiser's hull. Secondary explosions. The ship broke apart. Splash one cruiser, Rodriguez called out. Moving to next target, the battle devolved into chaos. The human fleet maintained its formation, but the Zathari had no such discipline. Individual warlords charged forward seeking glory, only to be cut down by coordinated human fire. The mercenaries, seeing how badly the battle was going, began to retreat. Some of them tried to flee the system entirely. The human destroyers, faster and more maneuverable, hunted them down. On his flagship, Warlord Krish watched his dreams of conquest turn to ash. He had brought the largest fleet he could muster, and the humans were destroying it. His warriors were dying. His allies were fleeing, and the human ship seemed invincible, their shields absorbing everything his weapons could throw at them. All ships concentrate fire on their flagship, he commanded. If we can kill their leader, they will break. 30 Zathari ships turned their weapons on the Indomitable. Energy beams and missiles converged on the dreadnought. For a moment, it seemed like they might actually damage the massive human ship. But the Indomitable was designed to be the tip of humanity's spear. Its shields held. Its armor, layered and reinforced, absorbed impacts that would have destroyed lesser vessels. And its weapons never stopped firing. Admiral Chen felt the ship shudder under the barrage. Damage report. Shields down to 60%. Minor damage to the outer hull. All primary systems functional. Return fire. All weapons. The Indomitable spoke with thunder. Its main railgun fired 4 times in rapid succession, each shot destroying an enemy ship. Its plasma lances swept across the enemy formation like the fingers of an angry god. Its missile tubes launched salvo after salvo until the space around the enemy ships was filled with explosions. The Zathari fleet broke. Those ships that could still fly attempted to retreat, their crews abandoning any pretense of fighting spirit. But the human fleet had planned for this moment. Destroyer squadrons moved to cut off their escape routes. Fighter wings pursued fleeing ships and disabled their engines. The mercenaries who had betrayed their contracts by attacking civilians found no mercy. In less than an hour, the battle was over. Of the 200 Zathari ships that had attacked, 164 were destroyed. 23 were captured, their crews surrendering unconditionally. Only 13 escaped, and those only because they had been at the rear of the formation and fled at the first sign of trouble. The mercenary fleet fared little better. 38 of their 50 ships were destroyed or captured. The survivors broadcast desperate pleas for mercy, claiming they had been misled about the nature of their target. And the 5 Trellan hegemony ships, the ones that had hung back to observe, turned and fled without firing a single shot. They had seen enough. Admiral Chen surveyed the battlefield from her command chair. Human losses were minimal. 7 ships damaged, none destroyed. 342 casualties, including 87 dead. It was a price she hated to pay, but she knew it could have been so much worse. Open a channel. All frequencies, maximum power. I want everyone in this part of the galaxy to hear this. Lieutenant Webb worked quickly. Channel open, Admiral. Chen stood and looked directly at the main camera, knowing her image would be broadcast across countless worlds. This is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Fleet. Today the Zathari came here seeking to punish humanity for defending innocent civilians. They brought hundreds of ships. They brought mercenaries and allies. They came seeking conquest and glory. They found only defeat. She paused, letting her words sink in. Let this message be clear to every power in the galaxy. Humanity will defend the innocent. Humanity will stand against tyranny and slavery. Humanity will not ask permission to do what is right. We did not come to the stars to prey on the weak. We came to build something better, and we will fight anyone who stands in the way of that dream. Fleet Commander Zarithi stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction as the stars shifted back into focus. The jump was complete. The Sol system lay before them like a ripe fruit waiting to be plucked. Behind his flagship, 5,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their hulls bristling with weapons that had crushed 164 worlds before this one. The Cathari were masters of war. Their entire civilization had been built on conquest, refined over 1,000 years of expansion across the galaxy. Zarathus himself had commanded the fleets for the last 40 victories. Not once had he tasted defeat. Not once had any species stood against them for more than a few days. He flexed his clawed hands, feeling the strength that made his people apex predators. The Cathari homeworld was a nightmare of gravity and dangerous fauna, where only the strongest survived. Every warrior in his fleet was faster, stronger, and more lethal than any alien they had encountered. Their technology was superior, their tactics proven, their will unbreakable. "Status report," Zarathus commanded, his voice carrying the deep resonance that marked Cathari nobility. "All ships in formation." "Commander," his tactical officer responded. "Sensors show primitive defenses around the third planet. Some orbital stations, a few hundred small craft. Nothing significant." Zarathus allowed himself a satisfied growl. The intelligence reports had been accurate. These humans were barely spaceworthy. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 20 years ago, stumbling into the technology like children finding their parents' weapons. The galaxy had watched with amusement as humanity sent out their small explorer ships, marveling at stars that the Cathari had conquered centuries ago. What of their military capability? Zarathus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Fragmented, Commander. The humans are divided into hundreds of separate nations. Our analysts estimate they spend more time fighting each other than preparing for external threats. Their largest warships are less than half the size of our destroyers." Several officers chittered with laughter. A divided prey was the easiest prey of all. Zarathus pulled up the battle records on his command display. Victory after victory scrolled past his eyes. The Thoraxians had lasted 3 days before surrendering their 20 worlds. The Vokrim Collective, proud of their defensive fortifications, had fallen in a week. The crystalline hives had been the most difficult, holding out for nearly 2 months, but even they had bent the knee eventually. Each conquest followed the same pattern. The Cathari arrived, demonstrated their overwhelming power, and the enemy surrendered. Those who resisted were crushed so completely that other species learned to submit rather than face annihilation. It was efficient. It was inevitable. It was the way of the universe. "Sir, we received scout reports before the main fleet arrived," a junior officer ventured. "Some unusual notations about human warfare patterns." "Unusual how?" Zarathus asked, not particularly interested. "The scouts noted that human history is filled with constant warfare. They have fought each other continuously for their entire recorded civilization. Thousands of conflicts, Commander. They have an extensive vocabulary just for different types of war." Zarathus dismissed this with a wave. "Primitive tribal conflicts. Fighting with sticks and chemical explosives. It means nothing against modern warfare. The species that gave us the most trouble were the peaceful ones. The ones who had time to develop strong technology. These humans have wasted their potential killing each other." The bridge crew agreed with confident murmurs. Logic was on their side. A species that fought itself constantly would have weak defenses against external threats. They would be disorganized, suspicious of each other, unable to coordinate. The Cathari had seen it before. "Prepare the standard ultimatum," Zarathus ordered. "We give them the courtesy of surrender. 1 planetary day to submit their governments and resources to the Cathari Empire. If they refuse, we demonstrate our power by destroying their lunar colony. Then we ask again." It always worked. The demonstration was usually enough. Most species valued survival over pride. As the communications officer prepared the broadcast, Zarathus looked out at the small blue planet that hung in the darkness. Ahead. Earth. The humans called it Earth. Such a plain name for a world that would soon be the 165th jewel in the Cathari crown. He thought about the speech he would give to the Eternal Empress when he returned home. Another flawless campaign. Another primitive species brought into the Empire. Perhaps this would be the victory that earned him elevation to the high command. 41 victories as a fleet commander was already a record. 42 would be legendary. "Commander, the ultimatum is ready for broadcast," the communications officer announced. "Send it. All frequencies. I want every human on that planet to know their world now belongs to us." The message went out, traveling at light speed toward the blue planet. It would take minutes to arrive, minutes more for the humans to process it, perhaps hours for their fractured governments to argue about their response. Zarathus had time. The fleet was in position. Nothing in this system could threaten them. He pulled up the tactical display, examining the human defenses with professional interest. Orbital platforms around their moon, a ring of satellites around Earth, a few dozen larger vessels that the humans probably considered warships. It was almost sad how unprepared they were. The officer who had mentioned the scout reports approached hesitantly. "Commander, if I may, the scouts also noted something else about human conflicts." Zarethis sighed. "Speak. They don't seem to have rules for war, sir. No codes of conduct. No limitations on weapons or tactics. In their last global conflict, they developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They actually used them on each other. Twice. Then they are suicidal fools," Zarethis said. "That makes our task easier. A species with no survival instinct will collapse at the first sign of true danger." But something about the observation nagged at him. A species that would use planet-destroying weapons on itself. What did that say about their psychology? The Cathari were warriors, but they understood preservation. They conquered to expand their empire, not to destroy resources. They followed codes of combat that went back millennia. He pushed the thought aside. Overthinking had never been his weakness. Overwhelming force had carried him through every battle. It would carry him through this one. "All ships, battle formation Alpha," he commanded. "We advance in 1 standard hour. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. I want this to be our fastest victory yet. When the Empress hears how quickly we took this system, she will know that nothing in this galaxy can stand against the Cathari." The fleet began to move. Thousands of warships arranging themselves in the pattern that had broken world after world. In the command center, officers checked their weapon systems, confirmed shield integrity, and prepared to unleash destruction on anything that resisted. Zarethis looked once more at Earth. That small blue world that didn't know its time of independence was over. In a few days, human children would learn Cathari as their primary language. Human factories would produce goods for the Empire. Human soldiers would serve in Cathari armies, conquering other worlds in turn. It was the natural order. The strong dominated the weak. The advanced conquered the primitive. The united crushed the divided. The thought never crossed his mind that he might be wrong about which side was which. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, watching the alien fleet arrange itself in Earth's outer system. Around her, dozens of officers monitored screens showing data from every sensor humanity had deployed across the solar system. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the occasional murmured report. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Park announced. "Running it through translation now." The alien message appeared on the main screen, converted to text by the AI systems humanity had developed specifically for this moment. Every government on Earth had known this day would come. First contact. The question had never been if, but when and what kind of neighbors humanity would find among the stars. The message was simple and clear. Surrender within 24 hours or face destruction. Submit all governments, military forces, and resources to something called the Cathari Empire. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. This was not negotiable. Admiral Chen read it twice, her face expressionless. Around her, officers waited for her response. Some looked angry. Others looked frightened. Most looked determined. "Get me the Security Council," Chen said calmly. "All members. Emergency session. 5 minutes." While the connections were established, Chen pulled up the intelligence data they had gathered since the alien fleet arrived. 5,000 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had in orbit. Energy signatures suggested weapons far beyond Earth's current technology. These weren't explorers or traders. This was an invasion fleet. The Security Council members appeared on split screens, representatives from every major nation, along with the Secretary General. They had been expecting this call. "You've all seen the message," Chen said without preamble. "We have 24 hours to respond. I need authorization to implement Protocol Nemesis." There was a moment of silence. Protocol Nemesis was humanity's contingency plan for hostile first contact. It had been developed over 15 years, refined through countless simulations and prepared at enormous expense. Every nation had contributed. Every space-capable country had built weapons and trained soldiers for this scenario. But it was one thing to plan for war and another to actually start one. The American president spoke first. "Admiral, your assessment of our chances?" "If we surrender, we lose everything," Chen replied. Our projections suggest the Cathari Empire does not treat conquered species well. If we fight, casualties will be severe, but we have advantages they don't know about. We've been preparing for this since we found the ruins on Mars. 20 years ago, human explorers had discovered the remains of an ancient civilization on Mars. The ruins were millions of years old, but they contained enough surviving technology to teach humanity a crucial lesson. The galaxy was dangerous, and Earth was not ready. Every government had poured resources into space defense, into weapons research, into building a unified military command that could respond to external threats. The Chinese premier leaned forward. We always knew peaceful contact might not be our first experience. The question is whether we can win. We don't need to win, Chen said. We need to survive. We need to make them regret coming here. We need to send a message to anyone else watching that Earth is not easy prey. The Russian representative nodded slowly. We have given you the authorization already, Admiral. All forces are under your command. All weapons are unlocked. Do what must be done. One by one, the other nations confirmed. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. Send them our response, Chen ordered Communications Officer Park. Standard diplomatic protocol. Be polite. Park's fingers moved across his console, typing out humanity's first official message to an alien civilization. It was brief. You have entered sovereign human territory. You have 1 hour to withdraw. This is your only warning. Message sent, Admiral. Park confirmed. Chen allowed herself a tight smile. Now activate the Mars batteries. Luna defense grid to full power. Recall all civilian traffic to safe zones. All military vessels to combat stations. Release the mines from the asteroid belt. And somebody find me a cup of coffee. It's going to be a long day. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden defenses came online. Railgun platforms that had been disguised as research stations. Fusion mines that had been drifting like space debris. Warships that had been hiding in the shadows of asteroids and moons. Every nation's military forces unified under a single command for the first time in human history. The Cathari fleet began moving forward, not waiting for the hour to expire. Chen watched them advance in their neat, orderly formation. They were confident. They had probably done this 100 times before. They thought they knew how this would go. They're accelerating, the tactical officer reported. Forward elements will be in weapons range in 40 minutes. Don't let them get that far, Chen ordered. Fire when ready. All batteries. Everything we've got. Admiral, they're still 30 minutes from the deadline we gave them. Chen looked at the tactical officer with cold eyes. We gave them an hour to leave. They decided to advance instead. That's a hostile act. Fire. The order went out across multiple channels, transmitted at light speed to weapons platforms throughout the system. Human commanders had been waiting for this moment, their fingers hovering over firing controls, their crews ready. The Mars batteries fired first, massive railguns that used the planet's mass as a stabilizing base, launching projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The weapons had taken 5 years to build and had been tested only in simulations. Now they proved their worth. 300 Cathari ships at the front of their formation simply ceased to exist. The kinetic projectiles tore through shields, armor, and hulls like they were paper. Ships that had survived dozens of battles across the galaxy were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. Multiple hits confirmed, Tactical reported, her voice shaking slightly. Forward enemy group is gone. My God, they're just gone. Chen watched the display with satisfaction. Luna batteries fire. Asteroid mines activate and engage. All vessels attack pattern Delta. Show them what humans do to invaders. The Cathari fleet was in chaos. Their neat formation was broken. Ships were trying to scatter, to raise shields, to identify where the attack had come from. They had expected a frightened broadcast begging for mercy. They had expected orbital defenses that could be easily destroyed. They had not expected to lose 300 warships before firing a single shot. Admiral Chen opened a channel to all human forces. All commands, this is Chen. We knew they would come eventually. We prepared. We trained. We built weapons specifically to fight enemies more advanced than us. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. Make every shot count. Make them remember. For humanity. The response came from 1,000 ships, 100 stations, crews from every nation on Earth. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They simply confirmed and went to work. Human warships streamed out from hiding places throughout the system. They were smaller than the Cathari vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. They had been designed based on the principle that humanity would always be outgunned, so they needed to be smarter and more aggressive. The battle spread across the solar system. Cathari ships tried to form defensive positions, but human tactics didn't allow for that. Fusion mines drifted into their formations and detonated. Railgun fire came from unexpected angles. Human ships made attack runs that seemed suicidal, launching missiles at point-blank range before burning away at maximum acceleration. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, Fleet Commander Zarethis watched his perfect formation collapse into chaos and felt fear for the first time in his long military career. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, watching the alien fleet arrange itself in Earth's outer system. Around her, dozens of officers monitored screens showing data from every sensor humanity had deployed across the solar system. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the occasional murmured report. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Park announced. "Running it through translation now." The alien message appeared on the main screen, converted to text by the AI systems humanity had developed specifically for this moment. Every government on Earth had known this day would come. First contact. The question had never been if, but when, and what kind of neighbors humanity would find among the stars. The message was simple and clear. Surrender within 24 hours or face destruction. Submit all governments, military forces, and resources to something called the Cathari Empire. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. This was not negotiable. Admiral Chen read it twice, her face expressionless. Around her, officers waited for her response. Some looked angry. Others looked frightened. Most looked determined. "Get me the Security Council," Chen said calmly. "All members. Emergency session. 5 minutes." While the connections were established, Chen pulled up the intelligence data they had gathered since the alien fleet arrived. 5,000 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had in orbit. Energy signatures suggested weapons far beyond Earth's current technology. These weren't explorers or traders. This was an invasion fleet. The Security Council members appeared on split screens. Representatives from every major nation, along with the Secretary General. They had been expecting this call. "You've all seen the message," Chen said without preamble. "We have 24 hours to respond. I need authorization to implement Protocol Nemesis." There was a moment of silence. Protocol Nemesis was humanity's contingency plan for hostile first contact. It had been developed over 15 years, refined through countless simulations and prepared at enormous expense. Every nation had contributed. Every space-capable country had built weapons and trained soldiers for this scenario. But it was one thing to plan for war, and another to actually start one. The American president spoke first. "Admiral, your assessment of our chances?" "If we surrender, we lose everything," Chen replied. "Our projections suggest the Cathari Empire does not treat conquered species well. If we fight, casualties will be severe. But we have advantages they don't know about. We've been preparing for this since we found the ruins on Mars, 20 years ago. Human explorers had discovered the remains of an ancient civilization on Mars. The ruins were millions of years old, but they contained enough surviving technology to teach humanity a crucial lesson. The galaxy was dangerous, and Earth was not ready. Every government had poured resources into space defense, into weapons research, into building a unified military command that could respond to external threats. The Chinese premier leaned forward. "We always knew peaceful contact might not be our first experience. The question is whether we can win." "We don't need to win," Chen said. "We need to survive. We need to make them regret coming here. We need to send a message to anyone else watching that Earth is not easy prey." The Russian representative nodded slowly. "We have given you the authorization already, Admiral. All forces are under your command. All weapons are unlocked. Do what must be done." One by one, the other nations confirmed. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. "Send them our response," Chen ordered Communications Officer Park. "Standard diplomatic protocol. Be polite." Park's fingers moved across his console, typing out humanity's first official message to an alien civilization. It was brief. "You have entered sovereign human territory. You have 1 hour to withdraw. This is your only warning." "Message sent, Admiral." Park confirmed. Chen allowed herself a tight smile. Now activate the Mars batteries. Luna defense grid to full power. Recall all civilian traffic to safe zones, all military vessels to combat stations. Release the mines from the asteroid belt. And somebody find me a cup of coffee. It's going to be a long day. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden defenses came online. Railgun platforms that had been disguised as research stations. Fusion mines that had been drifting like space debris. Warships that had been hiding in the shadows of asteroids and moons. Every nation's military forces unified under a single command for the first time in human history. The Cathari fleet began moving forward, not waiting for the hour to expire. Chen watched them advance in their neat, orderly formation. They were confident. They had probably done this 100 times before. They thought they knew how this would go. They're accelerating, the tactical officer reported. Forward elements will be in weapons range in 40 minutes. Don't let them get that far, Chen ordered. Fire when ready. All batteries. Everything we've got. Admiral, they're still 30 minutes from the deadline we gave them. Chen looked at the tactical officer with cold eyes. We gave them an hour to leave. They decided to advance instead. That's a hostile act. Fire. The order went out across multiple channels, transmitted at light speed to weapons platforms throughout the system. Human commanders had been waiting for this moment, their fingers hovering over firing controls, their crews ready. The Mars batteries fired first. Massive railguns that used the planet's mass as a stabilizing base, launching projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The weapons had taken 5 years to build and had been tested only in simulations. Now they proved their worth. 300 Cathari ships at the front of their formation simply ceased to exist. The kinetic projectiles tore through shields, armor, and hulls like they were paper. Ships that had survived dozens of battles across the galaxy were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. Multiple hits confirmed, Tactical reported, her voice shaking slightly. Forward enemy group is gone. My God, they're just gone. Chen watched the display with satisfaction. Luna batteries fire. Asteroid mines activate and engage. All vessels attack pattern Delta. Show them what humans do to invaders. The Cathari fleet was in chaos. Their neat formation was broken. Ships were trying to scatter, to raise shields to identify where the attack had come from. They had expected a frightened broadcast begging for mercy. They had expected orbital defenses that could be easily destroyed. They had not expected to lose 300 warships before firing a single shot. Admiral Chen opened a channel to all human forces. All commands, this is Chen. We knew they would come eventually. We prepared. We trained. We built weapons specifically to fight enemies more advanced than us. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. Make every shot count. Make them remember. For humanity. The response came from 1,000 ships, 100 stations, crews from every nation on Earth. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They simply confirmed and went to work. Human warships streamed out from hiding places throughout the system. They were smaller than the Cathari vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. They had been designed based on the principle that humanity would always be outgunned, so they needed to be smarter and more aggressive. The battle spread across the solar system. Cathari ships tried to form defensive positions, but human tactics didn't allow for that. Fusion mines drifted into their formations and detonated. Railgun fire came from unexpected angles. Human ships made attack runs that seemed suicidal, launching missiles at point-blank range before burning away at maximum acceleration. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, Fleet Commander Zarethis watched his perfect formation collapse into chaos and felt fear for the first time in his long military career. 12 hours into the battle, the Cathari fleet was broken. What had started as an organized invasion force was now scattered groups of ships desperately trying to survive. Zarethis had tried to regroup, to form defensive positions, to implement tactical doctrine, but the humans gave him no time to think. They attacked relentlessly, from every angle, without pause. Commander, 3 more destroyers lost near Jupiter orbit, the tactical officer reported. Her voice was tired. Everyone was tired. The Cathari were bred for combat, but even they needed rest. The humans apparently did not. How many ships have we lost? Zarethis asked, though he feared the answer. We are down to 2,300 operational vessels. 1,700 have been destroyed. The rest are damaged and falling back. 2,700 ships, more than half his fleet. In less than a day. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. The Cathari had never lost so many ships in all of their previous conquests combined. What are our casualties? Kresh asked. Estimates suggest over 1 million warriors dead or missing. The bridge fell silent. 1 million Cathari, the finest warriors in the galaxy, defeated by a species that had barely entered space. It could not be real. It had to be a nightmare. Human casualties? Zarethis asked quietly. Unknown but significant. We have destroyed perhaps 400 of their vessels. Their orbital stations around Earth and Mars have taken heavy damage, but they continue fighting with no reduction in intensity. That was what Zarethis could not understand. The humans should have broken by now. They should have seen the futility of resistance. They were losing ships, losing stations, losing soldiers, but they fought as if winning was inevitable, as if the casualties meant nothing. A new alarm sounded. Commander, multiple contacts emerging from the outer system. Large vessels. Dozens of them. Zarethis felt a surge of hope. Is it High Command? Did they send reinforcements? Negative, Commander. The signatures are human. On the tactical display, new icons appeared. Massive ships, larger than anything humanity had fielded so far. They came from beyond Neptune, from the darkness of the outer solar system where the Cathari had not bothered to look. What are those? Kresh breathed. Intelligence reports started flooding in. The human ships were old, 50 years old or more. They had been the first-generation colony ships, built when humanity was just beginning to reach for the stars. They were slow, their technology outdated. They should have been scrapped or turned into orbital habitats. But the humans had converted them. Stripped out the colony equipment and filled them with weapons, turned peaceful explorers into carriers for fighters and bombers. They had hidden them in the outer darkness, waiting. They have been planning this, Zarethis said in wonder. Since before we arrived, before they even knew we existed, they have been preparing for war. Not just war, Kresh corrected. This war. They designed their entire space doctrine around fighting a superior enemy. Every weapon, every tactic, every ship was built specifically to fight someone like us. The human reinforcements swept into the battle space. Ancient colony ships that should have been easy targets proved to be nightmares. They launched wave after wave of fighters. More than the Cathari had projectiles to shoot down. The old ships absorbed damage that would have destroyed modern vessels, their massive hulls allowing them to keep fighting even after taking hits that would have been fatal to sleeker designs. Commander, we need to retreat, Kresh urged. We need to fall back to the relay point and escape this system. Zarethis knew he was right. Pride had kept him here, kept him believing that victory was possible. But pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. All ships fall back to Rally Point Theta. We will regroup and retreat through the Proxima relay. The order went out and the Cathari fleet began its withdrawal. They fought as they retreated, maintaining discipline even in defeat. It was what they had been trained for, what generations of warriors had perfected, an orderly retreat that would save what remained of the fleet. They did not know that the humans had been hurting them, pushing them toward the relay point. They did not know that while the battle raged, human engineers had been working in the shadows, mining the approaches to the only exit from the solar system. Commander, receiving response from High Command, communications announced. Finally, Zarethis thought. Finally support. Play it. The message was brief and cold. Fleet Commander Zarethis, reinforcements cannot be spared. You are ordered to extract what remains of your fleet and return to Cathari space. Analysis suggests you underestimated human capabilities. This failure will be reviewed upon your return. Failure. The word struck Zarethis like a physical blow. 41 victories, and now this single defeat would define his legacy. But there was something else in the message, something worse. Cannot be spared. High Command had resources. They had fleets. But they were refusing to send them. They were abandoning him. They are afraid, Kresh said quietly. High Command sees what is happening here and they are afraid to commit more forces. They are letting us die rather than risk more losses. Then we escape with what we have, Zarethis said. All ships, maximum speed to the relay point. Forget formation. Forget discipline. Just get to the relay and jump. The Cathari fleet accelerated. 3,000 ships racing for the portal that would take them to safety. Behind them, human forces pursued, firing, launching missiles, destroying stragglers. It was not glorious. It was not honorable. It was a rout. The first ships reached the relay point. Space around the ancient alien structure was clear. The portal was active. Salvation was within reach. Then the mines activated. The humans had seeded the approach with thousands of fusion devices, each one camouflaged to look like space debris. They detonated in a chain reaction, creating a wall of nuclear fire that consumed everything in its path. Hundreds of Cathari ships vanished in the initial blast. Others were caught in the expanding shockwave, their hulls torn apart by forces no shield could withstand. The portal itself collapsed, destabilized by the explosions, the ancient technology failing under the assault. They mined the exit, Zarathus said numbly. They knew we would retreat. They planned for it. Some ships made it through before the collapse, Tactical reported. Perhaps 200. The rest are trapped here with us. 200 ships out of 5,000. 4,800 vessels lost. An entire fleet, the pride of the Cathari Empire, destroyed in a single day by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Commander, the humans are broadcasting again. Admiral Chen appeared on screen once more. She looked tired, Zarathus noted. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her uniform was stained, but her voice was steady. Cathari fleet, your exit is closed. Your reinforcements are not coming. You have one option left. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Surrender, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to decide. The transmission ended. Zarathus looked around his bridge, at the warriors who had followed him through dozens of campaigns, at the crew who had believed in him, at the displays showing the few dozen ships that remained operational. Commander, we could scatter, Kresh suggested. Hide in the system, survive as long as we can. To what end? Zarathus asked. We have no supplies, no support, nowhere to go. And the humans will hunt us down eventually. They have shown they are patient. They will find us. Then we fight to the last, Kresh said. Die as warriors, Zarathus considered it. It would be the honorable choice by Cathari standards. But he had seen enough death, enough waste. He had led millions to their doom because of his arrogance. No, he said quietly. We surrender. Tell all ships to power down weapons and await boarding. It is over. The order went out and one by one the Cathari ships went dark. Warriors who had never known defeat now faced the shame of surrender. But they were alive. That would have to be enough. As human ships approached to take them prisoner, Zarathus watched Earth hanging in the distance, that small blue world that had shattered his empire's perfect record. He understood now. The humans were not special because of their technology or their numbers. They were special because they never stopped. They never quit. They fought with everything they had, and when that was not enough, they found more. The Cathari had made the mistake of thinking war was about strength, but the humans knew the truth. War was about will, and humanity's will was unbreakable. 6 months had passed since the Cathari Grand Armada entered the Sol system. 6 months since 5,000 warships had come to conquer Earth. 6 months since the entire galaxy watched and waited to see what would happen to the upstart human species. The Cathari homeworld of Kethros Prime orbited a red giant star at the heart of their empire. It was a fortress world, protected by defense stations, patrol fleets, and the confidence that came from 1,000 years of conquest. No enemy had ever reached Kethros Prime. No threat had ever made it past their outer defenses. On this day, the Eternal Empress Veshkara sat in her throne room, surrounded by the High Command. They had been in this room for months, debating, arguing, trying to understand what had happened at Earth. 200 ships had escaped the Sol system. 200 survivors out of 5,000. Their reports were confused, contradictory, traumatized, but all of them said the same thing in the end. The humans were more dangerous than anyone had imagined. We should send another fleet, General Thakmore insisted. A larger one. With proper preparation, we can defeat these humans. And if we lose, the Empress asked coldly. We sent our finest fleet, our greatest commander. They were destroyed in a day. What makes you think a larger fleet would fare better? We underestimated them, Thakmore admitted. But now we know. Now we can prepare appropriately. We cannot spare the ships, another general argued. Word of our defeat has spread. 3 colonies on our borders are in rebellion. Other species are watching to see if the Cathari Empire is truly as invincible as we claimed. If we commit our forces to Earth and fail again, the Empire will collapse. The debate continued as it had for months. The truth was that the Cathari High Command was paralyzed by fear. They had built their civilization on the belief that they were the strongest, the most advanced, the inevitable victors. Earth had shattered that belief in a single day. Empress, our long-range sensors have detected something. An aide interrupted. A single small vessel approaching Kethros Prime. Destroy it, the Empress ordered immediately. It is broadcasting human identification codes. It appears to be unarmed. They are requesting permission to deliver a message. The throne room fell silent. A human ship here at the heart of the Cathari Empire. It was impossible. The journey from Earth would take months, even years, with their primitive faster-than-light drives. But the sensors did not lie. Let it approach, the Empress said slowly, but keep weapons locked on it. If it makes any hostile move, destroy it instantly. The human ship entered orbit without incident. It was small, barely larger than a courier vessel. No weapons, no shields. Just a simple ship carrying a message. It broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every Cathari on the planet could hear. The message began with Admiral Chen's face. She looked different from the transmissions during the battle. Calmer, more tired, but her eyes were just as cold. Eternal Empress Veshikara and the Cathari High Command. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. I am sending you this message to clarify the situation between our species. The image changed, showing recordings from the battle. Cathari ships exploding, human forces attacking with relentless precision. The destruction of the Grand Armada documented in excruciating detail. 6 months ago, your fleet came to Earth. 5,000 warships. You demanded our surrender. You threatened our extinction. You believed we were weak and divided. You were wrong. The recordings continued. Every ship lost. Every Cathari warrior killed. The numbers were displayed clearly, clinically. 4,800 vessels destroyed. Over 2 million casualties. The complete annihilation of the finest fleet the Cathari Empire had ever assembled. Your survivors have been treated well, Chen continued. We are not barbarians. They are prisoners of war, and they will remain so until we reach an agreement. Fleet Commander Zarethis wishes to send his regards. He has been very cooperative in explaining your empire's history. The image showed Zarethis in a human detention facility. He looked older, broken. The proud warrior who had commanded the fleet was gone, replaced by a shell who had seen too much death. We have learned about your other conquests, Chen said, her voice hardening. 164 victories. 164 species enslaved or destroyed. Billions of lives ruined by your arrogance. You built your empire on the belief that might makes right. Allow me to introduce you to a different philosophy. The image changed again, showing Earth, but also human colonies on Mars, on Luna, in the asteroid belt, human ships being built in orbital yards, weapons being manufactured, an entire civilization mobilizing for war. We don't want war, Chen said. We never did, but we are very good at it. 10,000 years of practice. We have fought wars that make your conquests look like children's games. We have survived ice ages, plagues, asteroids, and our own worst impulses. We are still here, still fighting, still refusing to quit. The Empress leaned forward, gripping her throne. Around her, the High Command watched in horrified silence. You wanted to know what happened to your fleet, Chen continued. There is no wreckage. We recycled every atom. Your ships are now our ships. Your weapons now arm our soldiers. Your technology is being studied, improved, and integrated into our defenses. You came to conquer us. Instead, you made us stronger. It was true, the Cathari scientists had confirmed. The energy signatures from human space had changed. They were using Cathari technology now, advancing at an impossible rate. In 6 months, humanity had made leaps that should have taken decades. This message is not a threat, Chen said. This is a courtesy, a final warning. Do not contact humanity again. Do not send scouts. Do not send diplomats. Do not send fleets. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. But if you threaten Earth again, we will not defend. We will attack. The image changed one final time, showing a star map. The Cathari Empire's territory marked in red, Earth marked in blue, and between them routes, jump points, relay stations, all mapped, all analyzed. We know where you live, Chen said quietly. We know your systems, your colonies, your trade routes. We have studied you while you recovered, and we have prepared. The next time we meet, it will not be at Earth, it will be at Kethros Prime. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. Stay away from humanity, or humanity will come to you. The transmission ended. The human ship turned and began its journey back to Earth. still broadcasting the message on all frequencies. Every Cathari who had communication equipment could hear it. Every colony, every ship, every outpost. The message was spreading across the Empire like a virus. The Empress stared at the blank screen where Chen's face had been. Around her, the High Command was in chaos. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. A few suggested abandoning the Empire's expansion entirely, falling back to defend their core systems. "What do we do?" General Thakamore asked, his voice shaking. The Empress did not answer immediately. She thought about the Grand Armada. She thought about Zarethis' broken expression. She thought about the human admiral's cold eyes and quiet confidence. Most of all, she thought about what the humans had said. "The next time we meet, it will be at Kethros Prime." They meant it. The Empress knew they meant it. The humans had proven they were capable of destroying a fleet that outmatched them in every way. If they came to Kethros Prime with the Cathari's own technology, with their relentless aggression, with their refusal to quit, the Empire would fall. "We do nothing," the Empress said finally. "We mark human space as forbidden territory. Any ship that approaches Earth will be destroyed by our own forces. We tell the galaxy that the Sol system is under Cathari protection and that we have negotiated a non-aggression treaty." "But that's a lie," Thakamore protested. "It is survival," the Empress snapped. "We cannot defeat them. We cannot even fight them without risking everything we have built. So we lie. We tell everyone that Earth is off limits because we say so, not because we fear them. We preserve our reputation, and we stay away from those insane apes who turned our fleet into scrap metal." Orders went out across the Empire. Human space was marked as a no-go zone. The official story was that the Cathari had decided Earth was not worth conquering. The truth, that the Cathari had been defeated, humiliated, and terrified, was classified at the highest level. On Earth, Admiral Chen sat in her office watching the reports from Cathari space. The message had been received. The Empire was in chaos. Several species were already declaring independence, seeing the Cathari weakness. "The galaxy was changing. Do you think they'll listen?" her aide asked. "Will they stay away?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "They'll stay away," she finally said. "They're not stupid. They know what will happen if they come back. And if someone else comes? Another empire? Then we'll do it again," Chen replied. "We'll fight. We'll win. We'll survive. It's what humans do." She turned to look at Earth through her office window, that beautiful blue planet that had withstood everything the universe threw at it. Ice ages, asteroids, plagues, wars, alien invasions. Still here. Still turning. Still home. "We didn't want this war," Chen said quietly, "but we'll be damned if we lose one."